Now I have an interesting question here, which was not even, I didn't think about this, but, this is from Fazna. Fazna, can H4-EAD continue to work for 60 days if the H1B is on? It's definitely an interesting question. I would definitely want the attorney to really explain on this. If the H1B's principal is under the 60-day grace period, can the H4-EAD continue to work, because that's dependent on stemming out of the H1B, right? So can you please explain more and the nitty-gritties, the legalities of this H4-EAD when the H1B is laid off?
I would say it's USCIS hasn't really addressed it. They don't address every single question. They don't. There's no regulation really explaining every single thing. We have to go based on what their practice has been in the past and try and figure out or if there's any case law on it, etc. So that's how most of our H1B or immigration law works. A lot of it is they don't have time to write the regulation; they just pass a law, and we are left to deal with what the intricacies of it and interpret it in the way that we logically can. In this situation, if you're in the 60 days grace period, you are considered to be within status still. So I would say that, again, with the caveat that we don't really know, I would say logically that a H4 should be able to continue with her EAD because the person is still within the 60 days grace. That would be my take on it. Because the reason I'm saying this is because USCIS has said in the past that if someone is not on a H1 for a temporary period of time, for example, if a person leaves the country for 2 months, 3 months, that person is not on a H1. But USCIS has said that the dependent continues to be on a H4 and doesn't automatically stop or cease from being on a H4 simply because the spouse is out of the country and is working remotely for a temporary period of time. So taking that logic into this scenario, I would say that since there is still a 60 days grace within which they're allowing people to get back onto a H1, etc., you might be able to work. But if you want to be cautious, I would say just stop working for that 60 days and then go back to working on your EAD. After that 60 days grace period is over, if the situation is such that they went back onto a H1. So just to be safe, I would say stop working for the 60 days, wait for your spouse to file the H1B. And once the H1B is filed, because they're allowed to work once H1B is filed, then you can continue working on your H4-EAD.
Excellent. Yeah, if there are any inconsistencies, with this period, and you might get into trouble with your future extensions, or at the time of green card, you never know. So, thank you for answering that question. And now, one more. I want to add something to this. Why not, if somebody's laid off, if they have a valid visa stamping, why not they go to the home country, for example, India, and start looking for opportunities while being in India, so that they're not accruing any type of unlawful status in the country, and come back on the get a new H1B from the new employer, and they can always come back, right, with the if they have a visa stamping, or they can also go for another visa stamping. I think you touched this before.
Right. Yes, and as I said, that was one of the possibilities, but people for some reason don't want to do that. They're scared of leaving the country because they think that they cannot come back. It's certainly an issue. I mean, there is more of a risk when you have to go for a visa, because obviously then you don't know whether the visa will be approved or not. But if you're not going for a visa, there is much less of a risk just going through CBP, because CBP usually, unless there's something wrong, they see some issue, they don't usually stop people from coming into the country if they have a valid visa and a valid I-797. So that's, rather than stressing out and filing a change of status and figuring out how to do it, what to do, if you have a job already in hand or you think that you can get one, just leave Don't, filing a change of status, and that's all very messy. Unless you need to remain here for some reason, maybe to do interviews or something like that. I think it's better to leave, and then if you already have a valid visa, then come back on that visa. That's not a bad option at all.
Okay, so it's better than safe than sorry, right? So I guess rather than trying, for something which is not going to work, 60 days, you have ample time to just go on vacation, as she said before, rather than being in the country. And this is much worse if you if you become out of status, then going to the consulate. If you have a job, if everything is great, I'm sure you should definitely get another visa stamped.